When you fall asleep at night, you probably think you're just resting your body, maybe giving your mind a break from the chaos of the day. But what if I told you, right now, while the world around you grows quiet and still, you're stepping into something far more sacred, a realm beyond the physical, a dimension where time bends, space dissolves, and the veil between the living and the spirit world becomes paper thin. You may have had this experience already, even if you didn't realize it. You dream of someone who's no longer alive, maybe a parent, a sibling, a best friend, and in that dream it doesn't feel foggy or fragmented, it feels like presence, like connection, like love. You wake up and you're crying, not from fear or confusion, but because it felt so real, and now they're gone again. But what if they were never really gone at all? Edgar Cayce, often called the sleeping prophet, gave over 14,000 documented readings during a state of deep trance. Many of them involved the nature of the soul, the afterlife, and dreams. One of the most powerful truths Cayce shared was this: when you dream, your soul is not asleep. In fact, it's wide awake. Your soul is remembering, traveling, receiving, meeting. Cayce believed that dreams are not merely psychological echoes or brain chemistry. Some dreams, he said, are sacred, encounters, visitations, portals through which souls from the other side can reach you, not to haunt or scare you, but to guide you, comfort you, and remind you of a love that cannot die. Have you ever had a dream so vivid, so emotionally intense, that it stayed with you for years? Not like a typical dream that fades by morning. This one lingers. You remember every detail, the sound of their voice, the way they looked at you, the words they spoke. You don't question it. You just know something happened. You were with them, they were with you. That is not imagination. That is not wishful thinking. That is a spiritual visitation. And it's more common than you think. Across the world, across centuries, cultures have honored dreams as more than stories. They were messages. In ancient Egypt, dreams were thought to be direct communication with gods and ancestors. Dream temples were built to incubate visions. In Native American traditions, dreams are deeply respected as guidance from the spirit world. Elders teach that when a loved one visits in a dream, it's not metaphor, it's real. The soul walks with you in that realm. In Greek culture, dream oracles believed the gods would speak to humans through symbols, but also through visitations. Souls walking through dream corridors, bridging the invisible. It's only in the modern Western world that we've become obsessed with explaining everything through science and brain activity. But even now, even with EEG machines and psychology textbooks, we still can't explain why some dreams don't feel like dreams at all. We call them lucid dreams or visitation dreams. But the truth is, no label really captures what happens when your soul meets another soul in the quiet of the night. Because that's what it is, a meeting between realms, between worlds. And here's the secret: it doesn't happen by accident. There's a resonance that occurs when your frequency aligns with that of a spirit who loves you. Maybe you've been praying, maybe you've been grieving, maybe you've simply opened your heart, and in that openness a pathway appears, one that wasn't there before. They come not just because they can, they come because your soul has called them. Cayce explained that in sleep your conscious mind recedes, but your higher self, the eternal part of you, awakens. And in that state you return to your natural habitat, the spiritual dimension. The place your soul has always known is that around time is irrelevant. Distance dissolves. You can be sitting in your bedroom in the middle of the night and simultaneously you are standing in a field with someone you love who passed 20 years ago. And it's not symbolic, it's not fantasy. It's reunion. You may not always remember it when you wake, or you might only remember flashes, a scent, a phrase, a hand on your shoulder. But something inside you shifts. You wake up lighter. The grief softens. The confusion clears. You feel held, loved, not by an idea, but by someone real. Some of the most profound dream visitations happen when we're not trying to control anything, when we're not analyzing, not chasing, just feeling. Because the language of spirit is energy, and energy doesn't need words. Have you ever dreamed of someone and they said something simple, something like, "I'm okay," or "I'm proud of you," and that one sentence broke your heart open in the best way? Spirits don't need to convince you. They don't speak to prove a point. They come to remind your soul of something it already knows: that life is eternal, that love never dies, that they are not gone, just living beyond the limits of flesh and bone. And that's why the experience feels so powerful, because it's not your mind making it up, it's your spirit recognizing truth. When a visitation dream occurs, it carries a very specific vibration. It feels different than other dreams. There's a clarity to it. You don't wake up confused, you wake up changed. It's often accompanied by an emotional release, crying, peace, even a sense of awe. You may feel like you've just returned from somewhere holy, somewhere more real than anything you know while awake. That's not an illusion. That's your soul remembering the deeper dimension of reality, the one most people forget about while busy navigating bills, schedules, and the noise of daily life. But that dimension is always there. And dreams are one of the ways we're allowed to glimpse it. Sometimes, you may even smell the perfume they used to wear, or feel a temperature shift in the room. You might hear your name whispered as you drift off. These are not hallucinations. These are energy signatures, signs that the veil is opening, that connection is near. It's important to understand this. Spirits are not bound by linear time. They don't operate in past, present, and future the way we do. So when they visit you in dreams, it's not about a calendar. It's about connection. They come when the energy is ripe, when your defenses are down, when your heart is open, and sometimes when you need it most. There are thousands of stories. Mothers visited by their children after tragic loss. Widows who feel their partner's hand in a dream only to wake up with tears and a strange sense of peace. Soldiers who dream of fallen comrades just before major life events. The patterns are too consistent to ignore. And the emotion is always the same. Deep, pure, real. Because you weren't just dreaming, you were remembering. You were receiving. You were not alone. A sacred passage. A ritual. A doorway. The Egyptians referred to the dream state as a house of the soul. They believed that in sleep, your ba, the part of your spirit that contains personality and emotion, would leave the body and journey through hidden realms. These weren't symbolic journeys. They were literal, from their point of view. The temples were designed with this in mind. Some chambers were used for dream incubation, where initiates would fast, pray, and enter into altered states to receive direct communication from gods, ancestors, or the souls of the deceased. Imagine laying down on cool stone, candles flickering around you, and being told that tonight your soul would travel, and when it returns it may bring back visions that could heal a disease, resolve a mystery, or reveal your destiny. That's how seriously dreams were taken. In Native American traditions, dreams have always been considered a primary channel for spirit communication. Elders pass down stories not just by speaking but through dreams. A visitation from an ancestor is often seen as guidance, not a ghost story. The dream is honored, not doubted. Some tribes teach that your dream self is your truest self, that the world you wake up to is the illusion, and the dream world is where your spirit remembers its origin. And when someone dies, they don't disappear. They transition. They become part of the spiritual ecosystem, and in the right moment, often in sleep, they return to speak, to comfort, to remind you that you're part of something much larger than this one lifetime. You may not have grown up in a culture that honored dreams this way, but that doesn't mean the dream visitations haven't been happening. It just means no one taught you to recognize them. In ancient Greece, there were places called Asclepions, temples dedicated to healing through divine dreams. People would travel great distances to sleep in these sacred spaces, believing that the god Asclepios would visit them in their dreams to reveal the cure for their illness. These were not passive experiences. They were deliberate, intentional acts of soul contact. Priests and healers would interpret the dreams not as metaphor but as sacred messages. A spirit appearing in a dream wasn't just a comforting fantasy. It was intervention, communication, proof that healing was happening on a level the physical eye could not see. Now consider this. In modern times, people often experience spontaneous healing or a shift in grief after a dream of a departed loved one, and no one quite knows why. But the ancient world would say, it's because something real occurred, on the soul level. In Tibet, the practice goes even deeper. Tibetan Buddhism teaches that dream yoga is one of the 6 paths to enlightenment. Through dream yoga, a trained practitioner learns to become conscious during sleep, to navigate the dream world with intention. But what's most powerful is this. They don't treat dreams as lesser than waking life. Instead, dreams are training grounds for death, because in the Tibetan view, what happens when you sleep is a rehearsal for what happens when you die. You leave the body, you enter subtle realms, you meet guides, spirits, illusions, and truths. And just as in dreams, if you wake up within it, if you become lucid, you gain liberation. The Bardo states the intermediate realms between death and rebirth are said to mirror dream states exactly. So if you learn to wake up within a dream, you learn how to wake up in the afterlife. Think about that for a moment. Your dream life might be more important than your waking one, because it's in dreams where the veil thins, where your soul remembers, where the dead can speak, and where the eternal becomes tangible. And this isn't just Eastern mysticism or ancient ritual. Across the world, from the Aboriginal dream time to the Norse visions of Valhalla, from the mystics of Sufism to the prophets of the Bible, dreams have been revered as the sacred middle ground between the seen and the unseen. In every culture, every continent, every lineage, you'll find this one common thread. When the body sleeps, the soul awakens. When the eyes close, the third eye opens. And when the noise of the world fades, the whispers of spirit become clear. So if you've ever felt that your dreams carry more weight than you can explain, if you've ever sensed that someone you lost returned to you in the stillness of night, you're not crazy. You're remembering something ancient, something eternal, something the mystics of every tradition have always known. Dreams are bridges. Bridges between worlds, between timelines, between spirits. They are not to be dismissed. They are to be listened to, honored, and nurtured. Because in dreams, you don't just find your subconscious, you find your soul's companions. You find messages meant just for you. You find echoes of a realm where love never ends, and no one is ever truly gone. And that's why spiritual visitations through dreams are not fantasy. They are ancient, they are global, and they are sacred. You may go your whole life without ever seeing a spirit in your waking hours, but in your dreams, the doors open. And when they do, something incredible happens. Not just because of what you see, but because of how it changes you, because of what it stirs in your heart, because of the peace it leaves behind. That peace, that clarity, that knowing, that is the signature of a true visitation. And you don't have to be a priest, or a prophet, or a trained monk. All you have to be is open. Open to the idea that your dream life is a doorway, that someone who loves you might just be waiting on the other side. Age of the soul, and within that language he said, spirits speak, not in riddles, not in fantasy, but in truths too deep for words. In his trance states, Cayce was often asked about dream visitations, what they meant, where they came from, and how to understand them. Over and over again his responses pointed to the same truth. When you dream, your soul is free, free to remember, free to meet those who exist in higher dimensions. He said it clearly, the entity may visit those in the spirit plane. and may receive messages of warning or of hope, of cheer or of comfort. That wasn't a poetic metaphor, that was a direct teaching. He was describing the moment when your conscious defenses fall away during sleep and your spirit becomes receptive to communication from loved ones who have passed on. Cayce often emphasized that the soul is never confined, not even by death, and that dreams are a natural way for souls, still tethered to the body, to momentarily re-enter the larger field of divine awareness, a field where time collapses, and where spirit is not just a concept but a presence. In one reading, Cayce described a woman who had lost her son in a tragic accident. She kept dreaming of him, standing at the edge of a field, calling to her. In the dreams he would say nothing, but his eyes were filled with light. She thought perhaps she was just projecting her longing, but Cayce told her, no, he is trying to help you. He has passed beyond, but still loves. He comes to comfort. And that's the pattern. When you are in pain, when grief pulls open the heart, the dream world becomes fertile ground for spirit contact. Not because you're vulnerable, but because grief softens the walls the ego normally keeps so high. It pulls your attention inward, it quiets the mind, and in that inner stillness you become reachable. He explained that grief actually heightens your spiritual receptivity, the sorrow, the longing, the ache for answers. These things tune your energy into the deeper frequencies of spirit, not always gently, but powerfully. Grief thins the veil. And that's why so many people report visitations shortly after the death of a loved one, dreams where the person appears smiling, healthy, radiant, not to talk about earthly things, but to say what truly matters. I'm okay, I'm not gone, you're not alone. And often, that's all we need to hear. Cayce believed these dreams were not only real, but necessary. He saw them as a form of spiritual healing, a moment where the soul receives nourishment. He would say, there are forces in the subconscious self that are ever seeking expression, and these, when allowed, may become channels through which the unseen becomes visible. In simpler words, your soul knows. And when it's allowed to speak, it will show you truths your waking mind could never invent. One of Cayce's most fascinating teachings was on what he called soul memory. He described the soul as a vast library of experiences, not just from this life, but from many. And he said that dreams are one of the ways soul memory rises to the surface. When you have a dream that feels too real to be a dream, Cayce would say your soul is remembering something. Sometimes it's from a past life, sometimes it's from your time in the spirit world, and sometimes it's a meeting with someone who has returned, not in body, but in essence. He explained that spirit contact doesn't always look the way you expect. You may not always see the person's face. Sometimes it's a symbol, a white bird, a flickering light, a doorway. Sometimes it's a voice that seems to echo inside your chest rather than your ears, and sometimes it's just a feeling, a warmth, a sense that someone is standing behind you as you sleep, keeping watch. Cayce reminded us not to overanalyze the form. Spirit doesn't need to follow human rules. What matters is the presence, the peace, the shift in your vibration that stays with you when you wake up. In his readings, he often described dream visitations as purposeful. He would say, they come not to disturb, but to awaken. Think about that. They come not to disturb, but to awaken. Not to pull you into sadness, but to remind you that life does not end, that love survives all dimensions, that you are not cut off, you are connected, deeply and eternally. This is why so often people will say after a visitation dream, I felt lighter, I knew everything would be okay, something inside me shifted. Because that's exactly what a visitation is meant to do. It's not just about the appearance of a familiar face. It's about the energetic signature it leaves behind, the expansion, the softening, the supple feeling that something invisible and sacred just happened. And Cayce also warned that not every intense dream is a visitation. Some are symbolic, some are emotional processing, but the difference is easy to feel when you know what to look for. Symbolic dreams often shift, fade, or leave confusion. A visitation dream leaves clarity, stillness, a presence you can still feel hours or even years later. He said, "That which is felt in the inner self is oft more real than what the eyes behold." So, if you've had that dream, that one dream that never left you, the one you return to again and again in your memory, it's because it was real, because it wasn't a dream. It was a reunion, a moment when someone you love reached through time, through space, through the veil of sleep and said, "I'm still with you," and your soul understood. Even if your mind doubted it, your soul knew, and it still knows. So maybe you've been wondering why the same person keeps showing up in your dreams. Maybe you wake up with tears, with chills, with a sense that something just happened, but you can't explain what. Cayce would say, trust it, honor it, write it down, because your dreams are not random. They are echoes of your deepest self, and sometimes they are conversations with souls who refuse to leave your side. Because in the language of the soul, goodbyes don't exist. There is only remembering, there is only love, and there is only the knowing that the spirit lives on. When you fall asleep, your brain begins to cycle through different wave states. Light sleep is ruled by alpha waves, the calm, resting state between alertness and dreaming. But as you drift deeper, your mind enters theta, and eventually delta. These are the sacred states, the ancient gateways. Theta is where the magic begins. In theta, the conscious mind softens, the veil between thoughts and spirit dissolves. This is the realm of deep meditation, intuition, and the beginning of non-physical access. It's where your imagination merges with your soul's memory, where symbols become bridges and the linear world stops making sense, because something deeper starts to speak. But when you reach delta, that's where real contact happens. Delta is the slowest, deepest brainwave frequency. In waking life, it's nearly impossible to access unless you're an experienced monk or mystic. But in deep sleep, your body goes there naturally, and when it does, your physical senses shut down, while your energetic senses awaken. This is where spirits find you, because in Delta your vibrational field becomes receptive. Think of it like tuning a radio. When your mind is awake and busy, you're broadcasting on a certain frequency, loud, full of static, always shifting. But in Delta, it's as if your signal slows, sharpens, and opens. And suddenly, those on the other side who have been trying to reach you finally can. That's how visitation happens. It's not about imagination or coincidence, it's about resonance, vibrational matching. Every spirit, including you, has a frequency, an energetic signature. And when you're in a high emotional state, grief, love, longing, surrender, your frequency shifts. It becomes more fluid, more aligned with the non-physical realms. That's why strong emotions, especially love or grief, so often precede visitation dreams. They're not blocks, they're activators, they create bridges. You've probably felt this without knowing what to call it. That moment when your chest opens or a deep calm washes over you just before falling asleep. When your body feels heavy but your spirit feels light. That's your system preparing for access. You may not see it with your eyes, but something is shifting, your vibration is calling, and in that silent call the spirit of a loved one may answer, not in words, but in feeling, not in a body, but in energy. They match your frequency because they've been waiting, because love creates a resonance that time and death cannot interrupt. Science is just beginning to understand this. Quantum theory suggests that consciousness may not be confined to the brain at all, that the mind, the real mind, exists as a field, not a structure, a field that interacts with other fields, that overlaps with space, time, emotion, and energy. Physicist David Bohm once described reality as a holographic universe, where everything is connected beneath the surface, even if it appears separate on the outside. In this view, your thoughts, your memories, even your love, are waves in a field of consciousness that extends beyond the body. And this is where the soul lives. This is where spirits wait, not above you but within this deeper field of being. When you dream, your consciousness temporarily unplugs from the body's limitations. And in that unplugging, you access a bandwidth most people never touch while awake. Call it the astral realm, call it the subconscious, call it the dream field. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, that when your mind lets go of its filters and your heart becomes still, something opens. A meeting place. A point of contact. And what activates it, more than anything else, is emotion. You see, your emotions are not just feelings, they're frequencies. Every emotion vibrates at a specific rate. Joy, sorrow, gratitude, longing. Each one sends a ripple through your energetic field, and those ripples, especially when charged with love, can be felt by the spirit world. When someone on the other side feels your frequency calling, they respond, but not in the way humans do. They don't knock on your door or send you a message. They appear through vibration, through presence, through dreams. Because dreams are the meeting point where your signal and theirs can finally touch. It's like two waves syncing together, one from here, one from there. When the rhythm aligns, visitation becomes possible. This is why some nights you wake up and feel something even if you can't remember what you dreamed. A heaviness, a warmth, a pulse in your chest that lingers. You may think it was nothing, but your soul knows. A visitation occurred. You just weren't conscious enough to hold on to it. And that's okay, because even without memory the energy stays. That's the beauty of spiritual contact. It doesn't need your brain to validate it. It leaves its mark in your heart. So don't be surprised if you dream of someone you lost and suddenly find your grief softening the next day. Don't be surprised if out of nowhere you feel clarity or peace or the courage to forgive. Because contact doesn't just happen for comfort. It happens to transform you. And it's not always just loved ones who visit. Sometimes the soul of a guide or an ancestor or even a version of your higher self will come through, not to give you a prediction, but to hand you a key, a frequency, a feeling, a reminder that you are connected to something eternal. In your dream it may appear as a person, a landscape, a message in symbols, but beneath it all is the same sacred exchange, one consciousness reaching another through the shared frequency of love. That's how visitation dreams work. Not through logic, but through energy, not through fear, but through openness, not by forcing it, but by allowing it. Because the truth is you are always connected. You've just been taught to forget. But every time you dream, your soul remembers. And in that remembering, you awaken to something extraordinary. You are not waiting for contact. You are already in it. Because a true spiritual dream doesn't leave you confused, it leaves you transformed. There are certain qualities, signatures, that mark a real encounter. The first is emotional vividness. In a typical dream, the feelings come and go. They shift like the scenery, unpredictable, disjointed. But in a spiritual dream, the emotion is constant, deep, raw. You feel seen, held, loved, or sometimes overwhelmed by a peace so profound you wake up in tears without even knowing why. That emotion isn't random, it's the frequency of truth. Visitation dreams carry a charge. It's like the moment you look into someone's eyes and just know they're telling the truth, no explanation needed. In these dreams, your soul recognizes the presence even if your mind is unsure. The second hallmark is clarity. Spiritual dreams don't fragment like ordinary dreams. They feel crisp, solid, timeless. The colors are more vibrant, the sounds more distinct. You remember details, what they wore, how they looked, the way they smiled, and often there's no confusion about who it was. You just know, even if their appearance has changed, even if they're younger or healthier or glowing in ways they never were on earth. You know exactly who's visiting you. And most of the time, they don't say much. Words aren't needed. Just one sentence, one phrase, one touch, and somehow it says everything. I'm okay. You don't need to worry. I've always been with you. That's the kind of message that echoes through you like a bell. Not just during the dream, but long after it ends. You wake up and their voice is still in your ears, the feeling still in your chest. And for a few seconds or maybe minutes, it feels like they're still in the room. That's the third sign. The presence still felt. It's hard to describe, but you know it when it happens. You wake up and your body feels different. Heavy but calm. Your breath is deeper, your heart beats slower. You feel like you just came back from somewhere far away. And you're not fully back yet. Sometimes the presence lingers all day. You walk through the world softer, quieter, like something sacred passed through you in the night, and you're still carrying its glow. And you are. Because a visitation dream doesn't just deliver a message, it leaves behind an imprint in your energy, in your memory, in your way of being. That's how you know it was real. You don't need to analyze it, you just know. Let me share something with you. There was a woman who lost her sister in a car accident. For months she couldn't sleep, couldn't cry, couldn't feel. The grief had frozen her. Then one night she dreamed of walking through a field of tall sunflowers. In the distance she saw her sister standing with her back turned. No words were spoken. The sister just turned slowly, smiled, and opened her arms. That was it. She woke up sobbing, not from sadness but from relief. She said it felt like something cracked open in her chest. For the first time since the accident she could breathe, and from that night on her grief changed. It didn't disappear, but it softened. It became something she could live with, something she could carry without it crushing her, because she had seen her. And no one could ever take that away. Another man lost his grandfather to cancer. They had been close, but near the end there had been an argument. Words left unsaid, forgiveness never spoken. The guilt stayed with him for years. Then came the dream. They were sitting at a kitchen table, just like old times. His grandfather looked healthy, vibrant. He passed him a cup of tea and simply said, "We're good." That was all. The man woke up and couldn't stop crying. Not from guilt, but because he knew. He knew the forgiveness had come. Not imagined, not made up, real. Delivered across dimensions through a dream. He didn't need a therapist to validate it. He didn't need proof. The dream was the proof. Because in his heart everything changed. These stories are not rare. They happen every day, all over the world. People dreaming of loved ones they thought were lost forever and waking up with peace, closure, even joy. Not everyone talks about them. Sometimes it feels too sacred, too private, or too unbelievable. But deep down, the soul knows what happened. And the soul never forgets. So if you've ever had one of these dreams, one of those dreams you can still describe in perfect detail years later, honor it. That was not your imagination. That was a sacred appointment, a moment of real contact, It's also worth noting that visitation dreams often don't follow the same logic as ordinary ones. There's a sense of stillness to them, a groundedness. You're not flying or running from something, you're just being. Present, aware, fully in the moment with the spirit who's come to meet you. Sometimes they don't even speak, they just appear, but their presence says more than words ever could. You wake up with a feeling you can't describe, but you know it means everything. That's the power of spirit. It doesn't always speak through drama. It speaks through quiet, through knowing, through love. And if you're still unsure, ask yourself this. How did it feel? Not what did it look like, not whether it made sense, but how did it feel? Because spiritual truth doesn't always come dressed in logic. It comes wrapped in energy, wrapped in emotion, wrapped in the unmistakable vibration of love. And when you feel that in a dream, pure, unfiltered divine love, you're not dreaming, you're remembering, you're receiving, You're being reminded that the ones you love are not gone. They've just moved to where dreams become doorways. And those doorways, they open more often than you think. But your soul is. Spirits don't visit to entertain you. They come because they love you, because they know what you need even before you do. One of the most common reasons they come is to help you heal. You might still be carrying guilt, regret, something you wish you had said before they passed. Maybe you weren't there in their final moments. Maybe the last conversation ended in silence or anger. Or maybe you just never got the chance to say goodbye. And then they appear in your dream, not with judgment, not with blame, but with peace, with presence, with the unspoken message, let it go. We're okay now. That's healing. That's a divine gift, wrapped in the stillness of the night. There's something about seeing a loved one in a dream, radiant, healthy, smiling, that reaches deeper than any words of comfort you could hear from someone still living, because it bypasses the intellect. It touches your soul directly, and in that moment part of you believes again. In life, in love, in the possibility that all is not lost. Spirits also visit to bring encouragement. You may be facing a decision, a challenge, a period of deep fear or uncertainty. You're not sure what to do and no one around you has the answers. And then, in the quiet of your dream, someone shows up. They don't give you a roadmap. They don't list out your options. They might not even speak. But you feel something from them, reassurance, strength, a reminder that you're not walking alone. Sometimes, just seeing them reminds you of who you are, where you come from, what you're capable of. That's not coincidence, it's guidance. Spirits don't just show up to look back. They show up to point you forward, to remind you that you have a purpose, to awaken something inside of you that may have been dormant. Because here's the truth. A visitation dream can be a kind of spiritual initiation. It's like your soul being tapped on the shoulder and whispered to, "It's time. Time to wake up. Time to step into the next version of who you really are. Time to stop shrinking, doubting, or hiding, and start living as the soul you were meant to be." This is especially true when the spirit who visits is someone who played a major role in your life. A parent, a grandparent, a partner. They knew your essence. They saw your light. And from their higher vantage point now they see what's unfolding in your path, what's possible for you and what you might be too afraid to claim. So they come to nudge you, to realign you, to pass the torch in a way. You may dream of them handing you an object, saying a single word, pointing toward a door. These aren't random symbols. They're spiritual messages, encoded in imagery your soul understands. Think of it like this. Your higher self is always evolving, but sometimes in the chaos of daily life you forget. You get caught up in survival, in routines, in self-doubt. A visitation dream interrupts that cycle. It breaks through the fog, and it says, remember who you are. You are not just a human body. You are not your fears. You are not your failures. You are a soul. Infinite, expansive, timeless. And this moment you're living, it's part of something far bigger than you can see. That's why they visit, not just to say they're okay, but to help you become okay, to help you remember the bigger picture, to remind you that your life has meaning, even when it feels messy, that your journey is sacred, even when it feels uncertain, and that you're always being guided, even when you feel lost. There was one woman who dreamed of her father night after night for a month straight. He had passed years earlier, but suddenly there he was, showing up in her dreams, helping her pack boxes, pointing at books, circling dates on calendars. She didn't understand it until a few weeks later when a major life opportunity appeared, an opportunity that would require her to move cities, start over, trust herself. And in that moment everything made sense. He hadn't just been visiting. He'd been preparing her. Spirits do that more often than we realize. They plant seeds. They stir intuition. They lay down a path, not by giving you the answers, but by giving you the feeling, the sense that something is about to shift, and you are ready for it. Because that's the ultimate message of every true visitation. You are ready, ready to forgive, ready to move forward, ready to believe, ready to live in alignment with your soul. And sometimes the visitation is simply love saying, I never left. Because love doesn't vanish when the body dies. Love lingers. It reaches across dimensions, it moves through vibrations, it flows through dreams like light filtering into a dark room. That's what you're feeling when you wake from one of those dreams with your heart pounding and tears in your eyes. It's love. Pure, unconditional, eternal love, saying, I'm still here. I still see you. I still believe in you. And you may think that you're the one being visited, but on a deeper level it's your soul that's calling them in, your soul that's ready to hear, your soul that's saying, I'm ready now. Ready to release what no longer serves you, ready to step into who you're becoming, ready to remember what you truly are. You are not separate, you are not forgotten, and you are not alone. Because every time you dream and feel the presence of someone who has crossed over, you are witnessing something sacred. You are witnessing love, refusing to die. Now that you understand why spirits visit, the next question becomes, how do you invite them? How do you deepen that connection, strengthen the bridge, call forward the unseen with reverence and intention? The truth is, the spirit world is always listening, always watching. But just like any sacred relationship, it responds most powerfully to invitation, clear, conscious, and heartfelt. One of the most profound ways to begin is through ritual. Not elaborate ceremonies, but small, personal acts done with intention. Before you go to sleep, take a few moments to create space, physically, energetically, emotionally. Turn off distractions, dim the lights, breathe, light a candle if it feels right. You're not just getting ready for sleep, you're preparing to cross a threshold. Keep a journal by your bed, not just for recording dreams, but for setting intention. Write a short note before closing your eyes. I am open to loving contact. I invite guidance from my loved one. I welcome wisdom from the spirit world. These are not commands, they're invitations. Declarations that you're ready, that your heart is open, that your soul is listening. This simple act, writing it down, activates your subconscious. It tells your deeper self to pay attention, and that act alone can shift your dream frequency. You can also speak your intention aloud. Whisper it like a prayer. Say the name of the one you miss. Speak directly to them, as if they're already there. Because in truth, they are. Another powerful practice is energy clearing. Just like you wouldn't invite a guest into a cluttered room, it helps to cleanse your energetic space. This can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, visualizing light moving through your body, or burning herbs like sage or palo santo with the intention of creating peace. You can also place crystals near your bed, amethysts, labradorite moonstone, gems that have long been associated with dream clarity and spiritual protection. Now, if you want to go even deeper, lucid dreaming is a gateway unlike any other. Lucid dreaming means becoming aware that you're dreaming while still in the dream. And when you achieve lucidity, you gain the ability to navigate the dream realm consciously, to call in a guide, to ask a question, to receive messages in real time from a spirit visitor. Lucid dreaming isn't just a technique, it's a sacred tool, one that many ancient cultures used to train shamans, seers, and mystics. And the good news? Anyone can learn it. Start by planting the seed before sleep. Tonight I will become aware in my dream. Repeat it, feel it, believe it, and when you wake in the morning, write down anything you remember. Even fragments matter, because your brain is building a bridge between the conscious and unconscious, and every time you write, you strengthen that bridge. You may also try what Edgar Cayce himself recommended, a meditative review before bed. He taught that the moments before sleep are sacred. an opening where the mind is quiet and the soul is preparing to journey. In those minutes, he advised reviewing your day not with judgment, but with curiosity, asking yourself, what did I learn today? Where did I feel love? What do I still need healing around? This practice not only clears mental clutter, it opens energetic doors. Cayce also suggested praying, not in a traditional sense, but in alignment with your soul's yearning, asking for guidance, expressing gratitude, speaking from the heart. These simple moments of devotion can prepare your spirit for contact while you sleep. And perhaps the most underestimated practice of all is dream journaling, not just occasionally, but daily. Even if you remember nothing, write that down. Why? Because the act of journaling signals to your subconscious and to the spiritual realm that you are taking this seriously, that you're honoring the communication. Dreams are subtle, but they respond to attention. You might start with fragments, colors, images, strange feelings, but over time your dreams will become clearer, richer, more coherent, and if you keep showing up, so will they. There's a kind of reverence that grows when you write your dreams down, a respect. You begin to realize that you're not just remembering stories, you're recording messages from a deeper realm. That notebook beside your bed, it becomes a portal, a sacred text written by your soul. And don't be surprised if over time, patterns begin to emerge. Symbols, recurring landscapes, the same figure showing up again and again. This is how the language of spirit works. Not always through direct words, but through repetition, through resonance, through imagery that stirs something ancient inside you. You might even notice synchronicities, dreams that echo real-life events, visitations that come right before big changes, or dreams that reveal truths you didn't yet know, but soon discover to be real. That's not your imagination. That's spiritual alignment. That's what happens when you begin to treat your dream life as sacred ground. And here's the most important part. You don't need to force anything. The spirit world doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to openness. This isn't about control. It's about surrender. It's about showing up each night with a willing heart and saying, if there's something I need to hear, I'm ready. And then trusting that what comes in divine timing. You are not trying to make a visitation happen. You are creating the space where one can happen. You are becoming a vessel, a channel, a listener. And when you become still, when you become intentional, when you prepare your heart as a sanctuary, they come, not always with fanfare, but always with love. So tonight, when you close your eyes, try this. Breathe. Release the day. Write one sentence of invitation. Speak their name and trust. The door is open. In recent years, something remarkable has begun to happen. Science has started catching up with spirit. For centuries, dreams were seen as mystical, unprovable, too subjective to study. But now researchers are peering into the brain, into consciousness itself. And what they're finding is beginning to echo what mystics have said all along. There is more to dreams than neurons firing. Much more. Take near-death experiences. Across cultures, people who have been clinically dead, no heartbeat, no measurable brain activity, return with vivid, coherent memories. They describe being met by loved ones, being told it wasn't their time, experiencing peace, light, and overwhelming love. These are not hallucinations. They're consistent, detailed, and emotionally transformative. And here's the bridge. The way many describe these experiences mirrors the way people describe spiritual dreams. The same clarity, the same timelessness, the same message of unconditional love. Scientists have tried to explain it away as a flood of chemicals, but the deeper they dig, the harder it becomes to ignore what people are actually experiencing. Consciousness doesn't seem to be confined to the brain, and that realization changes everything. There's also the phenomenon of terminal lucidity. This occurs when people nearing death, often after days or even weeks of unresponsiveness, suddenly become clear, alert, and coherent. In some cases, they speak of dreams they've had, visits from loved ones long past, messages they've received, peace they've found. Imagine a person on hospice, eyes closed for days, suddenly waking to say, "Mum was here last night. She told me she's waiting. She told me not to be afraid." And then, hours later, they pass peacefully. How do you explain that? How do you measure the timing, the clarity, the calm? You can't, but you can feel it, you can recognize it for what it is, the soul preparing to return to its source. The veil opening, the spirit world drawing near, and dreams once again become the meeting ground. In the field of transpersonal psychology, a discipline that explores the spiritual aspects of the human experience, dreams are not dismissed. They're studied, honored, valued as portals into the unconscious, the archetypal, and the divine. Carl Jung spoke of dreams as a direct line to what he called the collective unconscious, a realm filled with symbols, myths, and ancestral energy. He believed that dreams could carry the voice of the soul, that sometimes those who had died could return, not just in imagination, but as guides from the beyond. This wasn't fantasy. This was deep inner truth, surfacing through imagery. Modern researchers have expanded this. Dr. Stanley Krippner, for example, conducted studies in dream telepathy, documenting cases where people accurately received information from others through dreams, even across distances. While still controversial in mainstream science, the results were striking enough to suggest that dreams may not be confined to your own mind, that maybe your dream space is a shared space, a spiritual commons, a place where consciousness meets, merges, and communicates, especially when the intentions are rooted in love. And this brings us to a new frontier, the intersection of neuroscience and the mystical. Advances in brain imaging have revealed something stunning. When people enter deep meditative states identical to those experienced during dreams, their brain waves shift dramatically. The prefrontal cortex, often associated with the ego, quiets down. Meanwhile, the default mode network, connected to self-referencing and inner thought, begins to light up in ways we still don't fully understand. In other words, when you turn inward, something ancient wakes up. It's as if your brain knows how to access the invisible. Some scientists now believe consciousness might be a field, something that exists outside the body, and that the brain is more like a receiver than a generator, a tuning device, a translator. And if that's true, then dreams, especially those that feel more real than waking life, might be moments where your brain is simply receiving information from a higher source, from the spirit realm, from the soul, from love itself. This theory is supported by quantum physics, where particles can influence each other across vast distances, instantaneously, where observation changes outcome, where reality, as we understand it, bends. And if particles can be connected beyond time and space, why not souls? Why not consciousness? Why not the kind of connection that transcends death? You've felt it. In those dreams, the way someone appeared just when you needed them, the way their words healed something no therapist ever could, the way your entire body responded to their presence, not with fear, but with recognition. And it's not just a dream, it's a spiritual phenomenon that science is finally starting to glimpse. Researchers at NYU, for instance, found that during deep dreaming and near-death experiences, the brain shows an increase in gamma waves associated with heightened awareness, unity, and spiritual insight. Not a shutting down, an awakening. And that awakening? It's real, it's measurable, it's sacred. Because for the first time in modern history, science and spirituality are standing in the same room and beginning to speak the same language. Not perfectly, not always easily, but the bridge is forming. And at the center of that bridge are you. Your dreams, your visitations, your experiences that defy logic but radiate truth. Because you are living proof that the spirit world is not out there. It's right here, moving through your nights, whispering through your memories, wrapping around you in moments of silence and longing. And every time you open to that, every time you say yes to the unseen, you're not just having a dream. You're participating in the merging of worlds. You're helping weave together what was never truly separate. You're remembering the truth that science is only now rediscovering. Consciousness is infinite. Love never dies. And the soul always finds a way home. Sometimes the most powerful proof doesn't come from theories or studies. It comes from people. Ordinary people. People just like you. People who wake up in the middle of the night with tears streaming down their face. Not from sadness, but from something sacred, something real, something that shifted them forever. One woman wrote about the night her father came to her. He had passed 5 years earlier and she had been struggling with guilt, regret for not being able to say goodbye. In the dream, they were walking along a beach. He looked younger, radiant, like he did in old photographs. He never said a word, he just took her hand, smiled. And as they walked together, she felt the guilt dissolve. When she woke up, her pillow was wet with tears, but for the first time since he died, she felt peace. That single dream changed everything. Her anxiety faded, her depression lifted. She said, "It was as if his presence had been stitched into my heart, and I could carry him with me again, without pain." Another man shared how his younger brother, who had passed from a sudden illness, began appearing in his dreams once a month, always on the same day. Each time, the brother brought something symbolic: a glowing feather, a key, a compass. The man began writing the dreams down. Over time, the symbols formed a pattern, messages that aligned perfectly with events in his waking life. New job opportunities, bus roads in relationships, even near accidents that were avoided. He didn't believe in spirit communication before. Now he says, "I don't just believe, I know." Another story came from a young woman grieving her mother. For months she had prayed to feel her again, just once, just something. Then, one night, her mother appeared in a dream, not sick, not frail, but vibrant and glowing. She was in a garden filled with lavender. She embraced her daughter and whispered, "You're stronger than you know." The next morning the young woman woke with a phrase etched into her mind: "It's time." Later that day she received an unexpected call, an opportunity to travel and teach abroad, something her mother had always encouraged her to do. She took the leap, and in her words, "That dream gave me permission to live again." These stories aren't rare, they pour in every day. Different people, different backgrounds, but the same unmistakable energy. The experience of being loved, seen, and reminded that something greater is at work. What's even more astonishing is the synchronicity that often follows these dreams. One woman dreamed of her grandmother placing a silver locket into her hands. She had never seen it before. The next day, while helping her mother clean out the attic, she opened an old jewelry box, and there it was, the exact locket from her dream. Another man dreamed of his grandfather telling him, "Watch for the blue butterfly." The next morning, as he stepped outside, a single, bright blue butterfly landed on his arm and stayed there for nearly a full minute before flying off. There are dreams that guide people to long-lost letters, to birth records, to healing conversations they'd been avoiding. One man even described dreaming of his late uncle urging him to go to the doctor. He felt fine, but out of curiosity, or perhaps reverence, he went. They caught a rare illness in its early stages, treatable, curable, a near miss, a silent intervention. These aren't coincidences, they're spiritual echoes, and they all follow a pattern. The dream comes in a moment of need, grief, confusion, exhaustion, and it brings something that cannot be faked: clarity, closure, a deep, still calm. Some people feel it as a pulse of warmth in the chest. Others say it feels like coming home after a long time away. But always, it leaves them changed. Not because they understand everything, but because something inside them has been realigned. Realigned with peace, with presence, with trust. And for many, it's not just a beautiful moment, it becomes a spiritual turning point, They start paying attention to dreams, to signs, to subtle feelings. They begin journaling, meditating, asking questions they had long buried. One woman said, "After my dream I stopped fearing death. Not because I wanted it, but because I finally understood it wasn't the end." That's the power of a visitation dream. It doesn't just reconnect you to someone you love. It reconnects you to the part of yourself that knows the truth, that knows you are more than a body, that knows life continues, that knows love never leaves. And even when the dream fades, the transformation remains. People find they start making different choices. They open their hearts again. They find new meaning in old wounds. They let go of fear, not because they figured everything out, but because they felt something so real they couldn't ignore it anymore. Maybe you've had a dream like that. Maybe there's one you keep thinking about, months, years later. Maybe it felt small at the time. A voice, a touch, a room filled with light. But something about it has never left you. That's how you know it was more than a dream. Because the spirit world doesn't waste moments. Every visitation carries purpose. Sometimes that purpose is healing. Sometimes it's guidance. Sometimes it's simply love reaching across the veil, just to say, "I'm still with you." And sometimes the miracle is not in what the spirit does, but in what the dream awakens in you, because that's the secret no one tells you. Spiritual dreams don't just happen to you, they activate you. They wake up something ancient in your soul, a knowing, a frequency, a light. And once it's been lit, it never truly dims. There's something you need to remember, something your soul already knows, but your mind may have forgotten. You're never alone. Not when you're awake, not when you're struggling, and not when you sleep. Every night, as your body surrenders to rest, something sacred begins. Your consciousness loosens, the chatter of the world fades, and what remains is the truth. A truth that speaks not through noise, but through silence, not through logic, but through love. Because dreams are more than echoes of your day, they're invitations, invitations into the deepest part of yourself, into the eternal, into the space where the physical and the spiritual dance in harmony. And in that space, spirit is always speaking. Sometimes with visions, sometimes with symbols, sometimes with nothing more than a warm presence, but the message is always the same. You are loved. You are seen. You are guided. You don't have to wait for a visitation to believe this. You don't have to wait for the perfect dream. Just start by tuning in, by trusting that every dream, yes, even the ones that seem small, is a whisper from something greater. You've had moments where a dream left you breathless, moments when you woke up feeling like something had changed, moments where you knew without a single doubt that someone had been with you. That wasn't fantasy. That was the bridge. And it's always there, waiting for you to cross. You were never meant to navigate this life alone. You were never meant to carry the weight of grief without grace. The souls who've gone before you haven't disappeared. They've become light, presence, energy, and they're still walking with you, softly, gently, lovingly, on a path that stretches far beyond what your eyes can see. Every time you dream, you have the opportunity to meet them, to feel them, to receive. So tonight, as your head touches the pillow, let go of the idea that sleep is just rest. Let it become something more. Let it become your temple, your meeting place, your sacred bridge. And before you drift off, speak to them. Speak to spirit. Speak to your own soul. Say, "I am open." Say, "I am listening." Say, "I am ready." Then let go. Let go of the how. Let go of the need to control it. Let go of the doubts that whisper it's just a dream. Because your soul knows better. It always has. You are more connected than you realize, more loved than you've ever felt, more powerful than you've been taught to believe. And if you begin to live with that truth, even just a little, your dreams will change. Your nights will become sacred, your sleep will become a journey, and your life will begin to unfold in alignment with the unseen. This is the invitation, to live with wonder, to rest with intention, to awaken not just in the morning, but in your spirit, because your dreams aren't asking you to escape reality, they're asking you to expand it. To remember that the spirit world is not above you, it's not beyond reach, it's right here, woven into the fabric of your being, and every time you close your eyes, you're already halfway there. Before we close, let's return to the words of Edgar Cayce himself, words that echo across time and still ring true today. He said, "Dreams are today's answers to tomorrow's questions." What if everything you've been searching for is already waiting for you in the quiet of your sleep? What if the clarity you crave, the healing you seek, the connection you miss, has been whispering to you all along? Tonight, make a choice. Start your dream journal. It doesn't need to be fancy, just a notebook, a pen, and your willingness to listen. Place it beside your bed. Before you sleep, write a single sentence of intention. Then, when you wake, no matter how small the detail, record it. You are training your soul to remember. You are opening the door, and when that door opens, spirit enters. Not with drama, not with spectacle, but with the softest kind of miracle, the kind that heals from the inside out. Because here's the truth, you can connect with the spirit world. You already do. Every time your heart aches for someone who's passed, every time you feel a presence in your dream, every time you wake up with the sense that you were held, guided, loved, you are touching the sacred. You are remembering who you really are, a soul, a dreamer, a bridge between worlds. So don't dismiss your dreams. Honor them, explore them, because within them are gifts you haven't opened yet, messages waiting to be received, love waiting to be felt again. This is not just about sleep. This is about awakening. And your dreams are the key.